All right, we're recording. I'm going to move you people over just a little bit further. Okay. So NCAR forms are updated. That happens every July. Last year, I actually went to, hey, Stephanie, thanks for jumping in. Drive safe. We're going to do the NCAR form updates and just briefly hit the high points of what these are. Last year, I actually went to Cape Fear and sat in for a session, and that lasted probably less time than this will. I swear we were in there like 15 minutes. So that's good. If you remember last year, they did away with the contingent offer piece document, and now that's just rolled into the offer to purchase, where you're just notifying them, but there's nothing, there's not a formal document unless you have one like prepared by an attorney that handles the contingency, which I believe we do if you check our attorney folder in .loop. So following along here on page 2, down here, number 1, offer to purchase. There's a new sentence added. It's just about disclosing whether or not the earnest money check bounced. And I didn't even know this, but apparently in the past, the attorney didn't have to disclose if the check bounced. And it sounds like they do have to do that now, which seems like a fair thing, right? So, so that's good. I don't think any of these are really going to be incredibly monumental. It's more or less just a heads up. So if somebody asks you about it and they're reviewing the document, you know how to talk about it. But that's in section F here under the escrow agent piece. Paragraph 2, there's a new warning to stress the importance of addressing in the contract what items will or be included or excluded from the sale. We do that already. As you know, it's very important when you come down that you add all the right things as far as what does convey, what doesn't convey, what are fixtures that might not be conveying, like grandma's chandelier in the dining room or things like that. So it's just good to be very careful with that. But particularly to point out in this one, it is about smart devices, saying that attached smart devices automatically convey, which they kind of did anyways, like alarm systems. But this is like referring to thermostats and cameras, I would assume. So, you know, when you're working with sellers, you just might want to inform them that, hey, all this stuff conveys automatically unless we disclose out there that we're planning on taking it. And then if that's the case, make sure that when you receive an offer from a buyer's agent, that it's marked correctly in the contract saying that that stuff does not convey. This also touches on fuel tanks, saying that the owners are not to disconnect the fuel, move the fuel, take the fuel out if it's serviced by somebody who owns the tank. Now, if it's their tank, they can do whatever they want to with it. But if the tank is leased, they're not to do any of those things. Because I know sometimes people want to be really picky and negotiate the amount of fuel. There's $300 worth of propane in my tank. I want to get paid for that. So just make sure that you are prepared to address that and handle it the right way. It also says for any of these smart devices that they're supposed to be unpaired or reset to default settings so people can go in and make their own codes and everything, unless it's negotiated and agreed upon between the two parties that it's going to be left as is. So if it's going to be, that needs to be documented somewhere. Any questions about that? Going down where we're talking about here, I'm not going to follow along in here unless somebody wants me to address it specifically. This talks about agreeing or provided prorating taxes and dues and things like that. All of that should be prorated by the attorney unless there's some other agreement worked out. I would stay away from working out any extra fuzzy math. Just work it in the closing costs or whatever the price of the property is, and don't get on such a micro level that you have to deal with that. This talks about due diligence ending when the termination. It's actually when you send the termination, not when the seller's agent receives it. That's what this says, because the question was, well, I sent it at 4:59, but they didn't receive it to 5:01. Was it late? No, it wasn't. I can document that I sent it before the end of due diligence. So just make sure with all that stuff that you can document it. Now, obviously, I say don't text, but if you're going to text, you need to screenshot it with a time, and that still won't show the date necessarily. So it's better to, like we always do, send it through dot loop so you can check the history and show when the document was shared, the date and time. Any questions about any of that? Mm-hmm. Most of these things right here just say that all of these changes apply to these other offers to purchase, the same language. So the same thing, it's in the guidelines that explain it. It's in the land. It's in the vacant land offer instructions. For the backup contract addendum, it's saying that now the listing agent, when they inform the buyer that they are now primary, that the backup becomes primary, not only do they have to deliver notice that you are now primary, but they also have to deliver proof that the other contract was terminated.
That makes sense.
So they can't just say, and this has actually come up a few times lately. Nate, remember we talked about it because you said the property is back on the market already. We hadn't even gotten termination docs. And that was allowed previously because all you had to do was deliver notice. Now you have to deliver notice and you have to deliver proof that it was terminated.
It's different, Doug. That was.
I know it is, but it's the same thing. They couldn't have done that and accepted a backup offer without sending that over. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
And I'm assuming that also means it shouldn't be back on the market unless that's being delivered. But I don't really see that addressed. So I would hope that that would apply both ways. It also says that, take note right here, the due diligence fee when you become the primary on a backup offer is due immediately upon notice rather than 5 days. But it must be paid within 3 days. So it's due immediately. It's late after 3 days. Does that make sense?
You're in breach.
You have 3 days.
The earnest money it now has to be delivered at time of backup offer. Does that make sense?
Hey,
That's how it was before. But what you're saying is
I'm saying that's the case. I'm saying that's already.
You're in breach if you're after 3 days, right?
Right.
The DD.
Right. Any questions about that? Go ahead.
If you've got a backup offer in and the house closes, do you have to send a termination even though the house is closed with the primary person under contract? Because we've got earnest money being held by the attorney, so I just didn't know at what point they release the earnest money.
Well, there should be a deadline or something on the contract on the backup offer. Isn't there?
He wanted to wait all the way until it was officially closed and recorded before he was going to pull the backup offer.
Well,
I guess that makes sense because he can pull it the last minute.
Right, yeah, in case anything fell through the last minute, he said I'm just going to leave it until.
Without looking at the document, I can't tell you, but a closed MLS sheet should prove that they closed with somebody else and should be enough to release the earnest money.
Okay, and I'll ask the attorney.
Do it automatically.
Yeah, I would think it would be automatic, but I didn't know if I had to fill something out.
That's a good question. Please ask an attorney
Okay.
and let the group know, and I can ask too. Okay, that's a really good question. I don't know. I hadn't seen that come up because up until this past year, as far as I know, you didn't have to deliver the earnest money.
I mean, it would make sense to me because it's not a contract.
Yeah. Yeah, they made us send the earnest money, but not the due diligence. Like it's being held at the.
Well, attorneys are really funny about releasing earnest money.
I know. That's why I didn't know.
So that's a good question.
It just makes sense to me that you would deliver any monies before you become primary.
I agree. It makes no sense.
But it was in there. It was in the backup contract. Remember when I?
No, it is. It is in there. That's true, and I don't understand, but
Yeah.
I'll ask Jeremiah and I'll share it with you guys. Let me know, and you ask an attorney too, Tiffany, and hopefully we get the same answer. Because if we don't, then we got some more.
I need to redo that document.
Okay.
Not do it time and
The seller financing addendum, just stay away from it.
I don't know.
I don't either. Yeah.
The lead-based paint addendum is just clarifying that where the buyer is supposed to initial. I think we all understand that. The additional provisions addendum, basically this is saying that, hey, if I've got a pool and it's winterized, that you got to de-winterize it so I can inspect it. Additional signatures, this stuff is formatting only. New construction, just saying that the same stuff that above has also been applied as it's relevant to those documents. The exclusive right to sell listing agreement, now it says it expires at 11:59 p.m. instead of midnight, because clearly that was way too controversial or hard to understand for people. This talks more about the fixtures and stuff that exclude, as we were talking about before, and stressing the importance of addressing that stuff correctly and having it documented. Same thing about the fuel tanks that I mentioned earlier. Same things about unpairing any devices. This has just been reformatted, so that shouldn't really make a big difference. Just make sure the first time you use the documents to read through them. Again, I'm going to try and get those updated in the templates this week. Exclusive right to sell. These are just guidelines. So they've updated the guidelines to reflect what was above, because you know a lot of these documents have the instruction guidelines that actually tell you how to fill it out. The internet advertising addendum, it's extended to include, or expanded to include, mobile apps and other devices. So you guys know where that is. It's just where they're giving us permission to push their listing out to all the different places, so it shows up on a billion websites, etc. This is about the unrepresented seller disclosure and fee agreement.
Oh, yeah.
They struck out to this agreement. The buyer agency agreement, now there are two options for the termination date. The first is for buyers who intend to purchase a single property, and now there's a date for people who are looking at purchasing multiple properties. So before, basically, we considered it at an end when they purchase the property, right?
Mm.
But if you know they're going to purchase more than one, I think this one is probably worth looking at together. So let me pull it up real quick.
Is that like the two? I have the two houses people. I would use that.
If they're looking to buy multiple properties, yeah.
You got somebody buying 2 houses?
Well, yeah, they're under contract on the second one, but I just use the same buyer agency agreement.
Nice.
Oh, those are New York people?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
So look, for buyers who intend to purchase a single property, the agreement shall terminate when buyer acquires real property of the type or on a date. Okay, so it expires when you close or by a certain date. Okay, or buyers who purchase more than one property, it's just a date. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Any questions about that? Okay.
Seems like that would just be rare, but that would come
Mm-hmm. I guess not if you were from an investor or something.
I got a question about that.
Okay.
So, firm acknowledges receipt. Can you scroll back to it? I can't see it.
What, this?
No, the date thing.
This?
Yeah. For buyers who intend to, this agreement shall terminate when buyer acquires real property of the type. Or so theoretically, if you didn't put a date on there, you would have them locked in until they buy a house.
Well, yeah, but you have to put a date because there's a spot there.
But it says or.
Yeah, or, which means you have to pick one.
Right. So I'm saying if you didn't put a date there, you have them under buyer agency forever is the way I read it. Am I overthinking it?
Whichever occurs sooner.
Okay.
You just put your 6-month date in the second box on the right.
Without this, you're right. But it says whichever occurs sooner.
Okay. I missed the whichever occurs sooner. Okay. Got it.
But that's a good catch.
What I'm saying is if you had a buyer that you spent a ton of time with and you worked with for 7 months and they just kept bullshitting you around and never pulled the trigger. And then they said, hey, I want to go with somebody else. But if there's not a date on there, no, I'm not letting you out unless your next agent will give me a referral. I think the buyer agent's argument would be stronger in that case if there were no date.
Let's look at the guidelines in it if it says anything about having to put a date there or not.
Yeah, that would be my question.
Mm-hmm.
Fill in all blank spaces. If any space is not used, enter NA or none as appropriate.
Be precise.
Shall provide for its existence for a definite period of time. Therefore, specific dates should be inserted in the blanks in this section. So you can't just leave it open-ended.
Okay.
Glad we checked. Good question.
Just make it
Wait,
for
did
like
that say
20,
should or
45.
must?
Say that again, Nate. Hold on, Charles.
I said just make it for like 2050. You'll be fine.
Yeah, you could also do that. What'd you say, Charles?
I was going to say, did that say you should put a date or you must fill in a date?
Have to put a date.
You sound like a bunch of lawyers right now.
That's who gets paid to do these. So, all right.
Under emergency forever. Uh-huh.
No, thank you. I don't want that law.
I don't want to work with you for 6 months, let alone 6 years. No thanks.
Okay, the professional services disclosure has changed, so we need to look at that because they've added more stuff. I think this is the most substantial of all the changes.
I hate that.
Let's see what this looks like. I hadn't looked at it yet.
Oh, man.
Okay, so
Wow.
property, buyer or seller, and then the firm, and then you've got this, which we're all used to, but then there's like this inspection section.
Cool.
They're going to waive or select yes for inspections.
That's easier to see.
And for each one of these, at least it helps them understand what it is, and then insurance as well.
Oh, flood.
And then the ordered by part, we already have that. They talked about on here like that was new, but it's not. It's on the last one. But reorganize together.
Ordered by like firm, or like if the lender orders it or if we order it.
Yeah.
And then there's there's information here about radon, surveys, other important notes. So just make sure that you
This is way better.
Yeah, I like it better. Yeah. Cleaner.
Yeah. Hey, Doug, remind me again what you say when you get to the NFIP elevation certificate. What do you tell your clients with that?
I just say usually the insurance is going to require it, and it'll be either them, the attorney, or the lender who orders the certificate.
So do you put yes that they're selecting it every time?
Always.
Okay.
And tell them they don't have a
If they're
choice.
gonna need it, they're gonna have to order it anyway.
Tiffany, I always tell them they don't have a choice, that the lender is going to require to find out for sure if the house is going to be in the flood zone or not. And it's only going to cost them typically between like 35 or 50 bucks anyway.
Right, and it's just a requirement for insurance. So going through these real quick best practices, it's always going to be waived on the first line. It's always going to be yes on the second line if they're getting a loan. Same for the third. Fourth is up in the air. All of these as applicable. You know, I'll always tell people we always want to do in the triangle: home, pest, and radon. At the coast, home and pest. And then what I always say is, unless we know there's a known issue with the HVAC or the pool or the septic or the water, etc., then let's wait and see what the home inspection says, and then we can order a specific inspection, or better yet, ask the sellers to have that inspection done because of what's in the home inspection report. And I just explained to them that I'm doing that to try and save you money up front. Again, unless we already know there's a material fact, or you see something while you're there that brings you pause, or they just really want it done. But you guys know how to do that. Property and flood, same thing. You know how to fill that out. NFIP is always going to be yes. Loan, the attorney and the loan are always going to be if they use our people. All these are basically going to use if they used our people. Otherwise, they're waiving everything if they're picking their own people for any of this.
So, Doug, that being said, can we just have all the boxes left assigned to no one?
Yes, I'll do that when I set it up this time, so you don't have to.
Oh, yes, that would be amazing. That is the most annoying thing.
I just bulk the whole thing and assign it to no one.
What?
Yes. You don't have to click, and then you can select and hold and click. I just go right down, I hit select, and I just click all the way down, and then assign it to whatever, and it's one time.
This whole time?
Yeah.
This whole time?
I mean, you should not have to click each
Oh, I
box.
click each box.
Oh, yeah, no. I'll show you.
Oh, I feel dumb.
What I'll look at is the last two boxes. I'll put pictures and measurements for our buyers. For our sellers. And
I think I did it fine.
if you've got somebody paying cash for a house and you don't have a floor plan, I would recommend that you have measurements done to verify the square footage in MLS, because if they come back to you 3 years later and want you to sell their house and find out that it's 300 square foot smaller than when you helped them buy the house and you didn't advise them to get measurements done,
You in trouble.
you're not a provisional broker anymore. So just cover your butt that way. That's why that's there. And when I update the forms and put it in there, I'll make sure to have that. Okay. Any other questions about the professional services?
I would tell them.
I just wasn't sure. Like, hey, Doug, we don't need to send that to anybody, right?
Just the buyer needs.
No, that's just an in-house document. It's just for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
We need to have it as record should the commission come calling.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And technically, they have to have that signed before we can start ordering stuff, right?
Technically, they should sign that before you send the closing checklist to.
Yeah. April. And it'll come up and stop you that you can't submit the loot because it's not filled out.
Yeah.
That's the way it should be. I told it to make sure that happens.
Yeah.
Because when April gets the closing checklist, she'll see what you've checked, but she'll go to the DD request the professional services disclosure to verify that it's all done.
Yeah.
Because we shouldn't be acting on behalf of our clients to do any of that stuff. That means contacting the attorney, inspectors, anything, unless this is signed.
So Doug, I have a question because I messed up on one of mine. My people were under contract for a new construction house. They ended up terminating, going with another new construction house. I filled it out for the first house, and that's how I missed it for the second house. So I still need it for the second house, even though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That was
the property is
because I'm like, I already did it, and it was the house that we terminated. They had just told me we went all the same thing. Yeah.
Tiffany, you could just strike the date out, just strike out the property address and have them just initial.
Initial it. That's probably what I'll do.
Upload it as PDF and save it, and then strike through, drop the box in, and just have them initial that line. That's all you got.
Okay.
And then that way the dates on the other thing match up from before closing, and you just went back and had them do the address.
Okay. Okay.
That would be better than having a brand new document. So.
Okay.
All right.
This
This is formatting, COVID.
for the other house, and they just said, "Yeah, we want to be the same." I was like, "Okay."
If you choose to use this, that's what it tells you to do. I'm not advising using that.
Using what?
The COVID addendum is still out there.
Well, wow.
I think our market is too tough to be throwing this in the mix. Now, you got a house to on the market 70 days and you feel like your folks need to be protected, go for it. But, with buyers, not sellers, sorry. But, I think we should leave it alone. I think our market's too strong for it. On-site preview addendum. So this is a new form that was just released this year. It's designed for use with the offer to purchase, where they haven't been able to, basically it's making an offer sight unseen. It permits the buyer to put the property under contract sight unseen, subject to the buyer's right to terminate the contract after having the opportunity to conduct an on-site visual inspection of the property for an agreed upon period of time in exchange for an agreed upon fee. Well, in my opinion, that's the due diligence. And we have that in place, but hey, let's be redundant just so we can reference COVID one more time. I wouldn't use it. I think it's superfluous. I would just maybe negotiate a lower due diligence because of that if the folks are willing to take it.
So is that an extra fee on top of DD? Is it that same?
Based on this, it would be, yes.
Jeez. Okay.
I would stay away from it.
Okay.
That's a way, if you have a listing though, and you have somebody wanting to do it sight unseen, would that be a way to get more, I guess not really, more due diligence money per se for your client as protection?
I would just want it as clean as possible.
Yeah.
I would just say DD.
Yeah. Increase the DD.
That is
Because if
kind
they
of a
back,
weird
because if they
form.
back out, they lose it anyway.
Right, that's a weird form. I get it.
Doug, if you had a seller and a buyer presented you with an offer that included that addendum, would you encourage your seller to just say, you know what, reply and counter that, just combine that with the DD and give us a stronger DD? We're not interested in signing an additional document.
But now, of course, it's all about how long the property's been on the market and interest, right? But yeah, generally speaking, I think that would be a good rule of thumb.
Okay.
Yeah,
Any other questions?
What was the name of that form? I'm sorry, my phone broke up.
The on-site preview addendum, $7.95.
Thank you.
And it's on the last page of this document that I sent the link to you guys if you want to go in and look at this thing again. The actual changes start at the bottom of page 2 where it describes them. The first page and a half is just outlining each of the points that has had updates. And that's it.
Doug, did you update these forms in our buyer packets?
I haven't yet. That's on my to-do list for this week. I'm hoping I can get it done first. Honestly, I'm going to start and try and get the templates updated in Boomtown first because that would be the priority. And here's the deal. If you go to write a contract and I hadn't updated the templates yet, all you got to do, can you guys see this page now in .loop? All you got to do is under the templates and pull them from the 2020 NCAR documents form.
Okay. Just copy
Oh,
it
I got
over.
it. Yeah.
Just copy it over to
Yeah.
the loop.
Yeah, and you can just use it and drag it over the other ones to replace the old ones.
Gotcha.
That's all.
So starting today, you want us to use the 2020 forms moving forward?
I would. Like I said, I'm going to do my best to get those loop templates updated with the 2020 forms this week so they're in there automatically when you create a loop. But I mean, it's a lot of stuff and it's going to take me a while. And I need to do it twice because there's one for each region.
And you've got such killer agents that sell left and right. So
I know. And I really want to do the buyer packets too, but I don't think that's as important as having them in .loop. So I'm going to prioritize getting .loop fixed first. Any questions? All right. Well, if not, that's all I got, folks.
That was helpful.
Y'all
Thank
have
you.
a great day, and let me know if I can do anything to help you. I'll talk to you Thursday.
Hey, Doug, real quick, I can't find that email that you sent. I know you put that form somewhere else. Is it on the website or is it in .loop?
What's that?
The form with the changes, the email with the changes.
Yeah, I don't know that I have it either.
I got.
Just give
I'm
me.
sure I do, but somehow.
You get it now.
I know. I have so many emails.
I'll send it again right now, so it'll be